Hello, and welcome to this really special edition of I'm at reInvent. The machine learning keynote has just finished, and I thought the best thing that we could do was analyze what has just been said by bringing together a whole bunch of AWS heroes so that we can pass through the different announcements and different things that were mentioned and see what's what. Now, it's really important for me to mention at this point that I have no idea. I have no idea because I didn't watch the keynote because I was asleep. It's 5 o'clock in the morning here, so I've just got up early to join my friends here for them to tell me what just happened. And joining me to talk about this now we have Gillian.
Hi, I'm Gillian Armstrong, and I am a solutions architect at Liberty IT, which is a subsidiary of Liberty Mutual. And I am in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I'm one of the AWS Machine Learning Heroes as well.
Thanks, Gillian. We got Jeremy.
Hey there, Jeremy. I have my own startup right now, and previously Netflix and Reddit. Been doing AI since the 90s, and also an AI hero. And I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Thanks, Jeremy. We've got Guy.
Hey, hi, I'm Guy Ernest. I'm the CTO of Ayola, a small startup in sunny Tel Aviv.
And we got Luca.
Hi, I am Luca Bianchi. I am based in Italy. I'm CTO of Neosperience, and I am serverless hero and borrowed to machine learning because I am working on a lot of machine learning stuff since I was named here. So
Yeah.
I'm here in the wrong place.
I love serverless.
Awesome. So what I thought we'd do is we'd just sort of take the rundown of what just happened, of what Swami's presentation was from the top. Gillian, what was the sort of first thing? Where should we start this conversation?
Well, I think the very first new announcement was the faster distributed tracing with SageMaker. I believe lots of SageMaker announcements building on what happened at Andy's keynote. I think we were all, as we were going through and he was making announcements, we were trying to work out which ones were new and which ones had been announced in Andy's keynote. But definitely lots of SageMaker. That was the first one that came.
Sure. So tell us more about this. So and repeat that for me, because literally that's the first time I've heard about it. So it's traceability through.
No, just so just training. So faster training.
Right. Just 5 times faster than last year.
I've got it here. Yeah, faster distributed training.
Automatic distributed training.
Yeah.
Okay. And so is that exposing anything new as from a sort of an API point of view, or is it just the smarts under the hood is now doing what it did before faster? Do we know? Do we know?
Heavy lifting. What do we know? The heavy lifting is hidden from us, so it's just runs so much faster. We don't need to do anything.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
But I think that the majority of the stuff was on type of models that we are never going to do. So they are talking about very big models that are usually not something that we care about, because again, the big companies are doing that. But we will see the benefit on when we do it. When we take it, instead of 2 hours, it will be probably 20 minutes. So we can get those benefits, but it's not in the same scale like the one that they announced.
Right. Okay. So I wonder whether that's a sort of a hidden cost reduction. Sorry, Luca, go ahead.
Yeah, they talked about models leveraging many GPUs for training, and they are able to parallelize data flowing into that GPUs. And I think it should be something quite similar to Facebook Horovoid, but I don't have the details, so basically I don't know. But should be something in that space.
For sure. I suppose it's worth pointing out.
There was another announcement that they had a few minutes later that might be some of the secret sauce. They talked about a new debugger, a deep learning debugger that is trying to check when you are using your CPU more, when you're using your GPU more, and balance it better. So maybe some of these tools that now we can use as part of SageMaker are also used behind the scene when they try to optimize those training for us.
For sure. I was just going to say it's worth pointing out that all of these announcements are all very new to all of us. So
Yes.
we're just sort of, this is our initial reaction. We'll probably have to come back, you know, in a week or so when we've managed to sort of rip the lid off it and have a look inside as well. So I wonder whether whether he spoke about this and whether this is something we know. But does this mean that it's going to be faster, therefore cheaper, or just faster and parallel? So we're going to use the same amount of resources. It's going to be the same amount of money, or maybe even more.
As typical for these keynotes, they didn't really touch on pricing.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say whether you get charged, you know, 5x the price.
Yeah. Well, they touch on
Yeah.
pricing when it's a pricing announcement. So clearly this isn't a pricing announcement. So
Yeah.
It just said faster, so it did seem to be about more parallelization.
for sure.
So yeah, probably the same cost. Hopefully not more. I think that the next SageMaker announcement was much more interesting, which was SageMaker Clarify.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is for bias detection. I think that was a pretty big announcement.
Right-o-ho. Go on.
Yeah, I'm super
tell us more.
excited about that one. So it's it helps you detect bias in your data sets. So it will flag potential areas where you're introducing bias into your models. And I think that's fantastic, just in the fact that it's just surfacing that this problem exists. Like, a lot of people don't even realize that this is a problem at all. So just the fact that it even exists is pretty amazing.
So it's not only the data set, it's also running when you are actually monitoring the model when it's running live, and checking for those drifts that might happen in time.
Sure.
And they gave a good example of if the rate of the mortgage is changing, then maybe then you're only going to see the bias, but they also want to catch it, even if it's the model is already trained.
Sure.
Yes, and this is also a huge step towards machine learning explainability, because we have a lot of business domains in which you need to understand how a prediction has been made. Think about issuing a new card or a new credit account to someone. You can predict if she will be or not a good payer. That's fine, but you need to be able to explain why you got that result, because otherwise you won't be compliant with regulation. And this is a huge step forward that direction also.
For sure. Right. Look, but bias as a term can mean a few things, I think, in this space. Jeremy, can you unpack for us a little bit, and for people watching, what bias means in this context?
So they're talking about like the non-technical form of bias, really, like the whole, you know, somebody who is a minority is getting a worse mortgage rate than somebody who's not a minority.
Sure.
Detecting that kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of bias that they're looking to detect.
Yeah, and imbalanced data sets and things like that. It was nice that, as Guy pointed out, that they're integrating into that model monitoring bit as well. So one of the things they will detect then is that bias as your model's running. But I think it's a big step forward, getting people thinking about it. I'm a big advocate for ethics and AI and responsible AI. So I think anything that helps people start thinking about it and starts equipping them with stuff so that they're being very aware of it as they're thinking about doing machine learning is like really, really good step forward.
For sure. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of mention, especially in the press, about bias in relation to facial recognition as well. Is that the kind of thing that this will look at? Is it? Could we get a sense of whether that imagery data is going to be supported?
Presumably, yes. Presumably, it can detect that sort of bias as well.
Yeah, sure. So that's interesting. So that must be using, under the surface, that must be using their pre-trained models to sort of compare their data, to compare that modeling to what you have in your data, because otherwise how would they know from just a pure ones and zeros data point of view? So that must be, I would assume, comparing it to vast amounts of data that they have under the hood.
So they have this kind of a notion that you can flag what are the features that are sensitive and you want to monitor them. So if, for example, gender is something that you want to monitor, you might say, hey, I want to make sure that gender it's balanced and we don't have any bias around that. And so it's not some kind of automatically doing that, but you can also direct it to places where you think it's more sensitive.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Uh,
That's a really interesting service. I'm very much seeing that as a service announcement where they want to grab some headlines in the mainstream press.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
a bit I could add. I've seen that somewhere on Twitter. I think that they are using Shop framework under the hood, which is a very famous framework for explainability. And I think that it's something kind of managed Shop framework, clarified.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to take a look at that. It's not something that I'm familiar with. Are you familiar with that, Luca?
Not so much, but a colleague of mine just hinted me to hey, look at that a blog post that is saying that they use Shop framework, which is something we used a lot.
Cool.
There is a lot of research now around responsible AI. So SHAP is one of them. There are about 5 different algorithms that are trying to do the same thing. So there's a lot of research around that, and probably AWS will put it under the hood for us as much as they can.
For sure, sure.
Yeah,
And Gillian, you mentioned
yeah.
debugger, Gillian, or sorry, did you have more to say on?
Oh no, I was just going to point out. So I know there was chat going on. Ant Stanley pointed out that Nashley, who was doing the announcement and who spoke about it in the keynote, has come from. She was CTO of PartPick, that was acquired by AWS, which was an entirely black founding team with visual recognition. I don't know much about it, but I thought that was very interesting, and it sounds like it's a positive thing if that's a startup they've acquired and that's who's been involved in building it.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I'm seeing that. I'm I'm scrolling through the through Jeff's live blog, which is bottom to top. I'm not sure if that's how these things should normally be done. It's a little bit round the wrong way for me, but yes, I'm seeing that there too. I'm seeing that. So you mentioned debugger. We've had some debugging capability in SageMaker and SageMaker Studio before. How is this different? Do you have a sense of that?
So you didn't get that many details, but I think that try to see things which are not just around the code and the parameters, but more around the resources like the CPU, the memory, the networking that you have on the distributed training and so on. So we try to look at it in a more holistic way. And here there are probably going to a lot of benefits, like the one that we said at the beginning, the faster training. But we know that those are expensive and not many companies can actually run that. And if we can make it more accessible to more companies, we're going to see more innovation around that. So,
right.
But again, we didn't play with that enough, and
yes,
it seems promising.
I mean, it's 2 hours. The presentation, the keynote was 2 hours long, but I suppose that's still not enough time for Swami to like move to the side of the stage and say, "Let me show you," and start like grab a keyboard out and have a go.
No,
but visibility is key, right?
At the background.
Yeah, absolutely. Visibility is key. Knowing so much of machine learning, especially when you start out, is this kind of black box. I set these parameters and magic happens. I do very much like this ability to be able to sort of like take the lid off that and see things flowing around inside, even if you can just get an intuition or a sense that you should be able to change something or tweak something to get a better performing model or a faster training model. So yeah. Cool.
Even because in some cases you don't have, you are not kept by GPU, but you are kept by network transfers or something else. And it is very difficult to understand. So maybe I have this super performant GPU, I'm training and I got stuck. I spend a lot of hours, nothing happens. And then I figure out that probably the problem was the fact that I was not providing data fast enough, or my CPU was the bottleneck. And this could be helpful in this space.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're in AWS vanilla, and if you're in infrastructure space, then these are the types of things that they're kind of almost like bread and butter of people who monitor those kinds of environments. But I'm very much seeing this trend of pulling as many tools and metrics and things inside of SageMaker Studio so that your ML engineer can just go to, well, frankly, can just go to SSO, sign into SageMaker Studio, ignore the fact that the rest of AWS even exists, and see those kinds of things there. So that makes sense to me from that point of view. I mean,
they do market it
well
as an ML IDE, so it makes sense that they're gonna bring all these things into it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we saw it as well with ML pipelines. ML pipelines, I think there is a bit of stuff in there which is kind of new in the SageMaker API, but a lot of it seems to me anyway, from the demos that I'm seeing and the templates that are in there, a lot of it is essentially surfacing functionality that's elsewhere in AWS. So pipelines and build steps and all the stuff that developers and DevOps use all the time, but surfacing it in this nice, friendly ML environment. For sure.
Yeah, because their competitor, in my opinion, is not another cloud vendor in this space. Their competitor is the on-premise world, because they put on a figure when they stated that 92% of TensorFlow and PyTorch models are run on AWS. To my opinion, that means that the cloud deployment of machine learning models, 90% runs on AWS, but you have a huge set of customers that are still struggling with servers, with GPUs and whatever. So providing an IDE that you can fire in a snap is something really huge. It can shift many data scientists to AWS.
Sure. Are you all using SageMaker Studio?
It's not not for work now.
Come on, we are professionals.
Well, it's not. We have internal things, so
yeah, sure. So internal Jupyter Lab environments.
A collection of different things. Yeah. So it may come in the future that we use it, but it's not one of the toolings that they're directing people to at the moment. But there's so much new stuff has come now. I think it'll probably be a discussion, but there's a lot of internal built tooling.
If you already have some tools, you will continue using them. It takes time to shift to a new tool. But if you are a newcomer, you will probably start with Studio.
Yeah, I hate to tell this guy, but SageMaker Studio's been out for a year. How long do you want? But no, I get it, right? I get it. No, I get it. It's not a comment on Guy. It's a comment on SageMaker Studio. Look, I think it came out last year at reInvent. I certainly played around with it quite a bit, but to start with, it wasn't ready, in my opinion, and it had some actual bugs, which meant that it wasn't usable. But it's certainly getting more and more stable, and it'd be interesting to see it. Interesting to see how its adoption is picked up. If nothing else, then it's an interesting place to be able to demo some of the technologies to come out with, because things like AutoML and the other services that it's still early in the morning. The other services that they ramped into that platform, they don't have to be used in that platform. You can use them outside as well. So, but it's a nice place to sort of consolidate everything together, I guess. So
the next big thing was another SageMaker Edge Manager.
Yeah.
Guess what it does, Mike? Don't look.
Guess what it does? Oh, it manages my edge for me. Here's my edge. Like, what's it going to do? All right. So what we're doing ML at edge, presumably. Are we talking about?
Again, we started, with deep lens and green grass. It was a lot of work, and it took hours to make it happen, and the limitations, and sometimes it didn't work and didn't know why. And hopefully now you can actually manage a huge fleet of edge devices.
It's a fleet manager.
Fleet manager, yeah, for IoT devices.
I think it's not only a fleet manager, because 1 year or so they released SageMaker Neo. Which is really great in their idea, but it is really difficult to use. I have a friend who spent a lot of days trying to compile the model for SageMaker Neo and to deploy that model on Jetson Nano. And it was a nightmare. And he had to start trying to understand which instructions weren't supported, how to deploy the model and whatsoever. And I think that Edge Manager is going to simplify that a lot. Because you can optimize the model using SageMaker Neo. SageMaker was just released with not much hype around that, SageMaker Neo, and it grew during the last month. It had a number of releases, and I think that now it's mature and it is inside Edge Manager.
So when we're talking edge, we're talking edge device, we're talking bits of hardware.
Exactly.
We're not talking edge like CloudFront, for example. We're not talking about pushing.
No, smart devices. So if you want to look after your fleet of drones, Mike, if you're building a small drone army, then it's going to help you out.
Excellent. I wonder if that's related to things like Panorama then, because I mean that's
exactly.
I'm
sure that Panorama is powered by this Edge Manager.
Yeah, sure.
And they talked about Panorama at the end, skipping ahead a little.
Yeah,
sure.
But yes, I'm sure the two go together.
Yeah.
I hope that Edge Manager will be cheaper than Panorama, because Panorama is huge. Is something that I've been waiting for a long time since they announced the deep lens. But right now it is focused on very specific use cases because it has a price point of $4,000. So is not cheap at all. You can is more than affordable if you are putting the Panorama in an industrial environment, if you are monitoring a supply chain or whatsoever, and it's great. But if you are using that for small offices, for surveillance and things like that, is not so cheap.
Yeah,
can handle 20 streams of video, so there are probably multiple GPUs there. So it is toward the high-end use cases.
Can I make
it's
a
for
bet?
the big, for the big companies. Yeah.
My bet is that inside Panorama there is an NVIDIA TX2 chip, because the specification of Panorama are pretty much the same of NVIDIA Xavier, NVIDIA TX2. So my bet is that one. We will see, but my bet is that.
I think I want to add to that discussion about price just very, very briefly from the point of view, and as Gillian said, like for a manufacturing plant, for somewhere where they've got millions of dollars worth of machinery already, this is going to be a drop in the ocean. The thing that sort of came into my mind when thinking about the price of that, I saw people sort of analyzing it and saying, for that money, let's spec out the PC I could buy for that. But the point, what I'm hoping is that this device is managed completely through the cloud. Obviously, it will be from the point of view of putting models out there, but also from software updates and all the rest of it as well. So if we can get to the point where it's either you through the console are pressing a button to do all those software updates, or it just somehow does it as part of the service, then that's a huge part of it as well. I think having a PC and then putting your own operating system on it and then having to patch it and then connecting to the network and do all that kind of stuff, there's a pretty large real world cost involved in doing all that kind of stuff as well. But I'm definitely excited to see Deep Lens has now grown up, and I'll be interested to see what that ends up looking like.
And they said an interesting thing about Panorama during the keynote, because Panorama is IPX6 certified, which means that you can put that on a rainy day outside your window and it will continue working. It's not something you can put subsea, but it's something that it can stay outside and it is protected by occasional rain or whatsoever.
Yeah, good point. Yes, and those cases on their own can, well, they don't cost several $1,000s, but sure. What's next? What's next? Who wants to take out what did Swami give us next?
Well, I think that covered all of the SageMaker. So after that, they had Redshift and Neptune ML.
Okay.
And both of those are basically add-ons for Redshift and Neptune to make it really easy to add ML models to the data you've already got. One for Redshift, relational database, one for graph database, Neptune.
And this is added to the RDS that you can do with the ML and Athena that you can query using an ML function. So it really makes it, whatever is your data, you can actually query that and add and enrich it with a machine learning model running on SageMaker, which is, it's amazing because, so many users can start integrating the machine learning, because many times the machine learning is staying in the lab, and you cannot actually consume it. Here, it just goes into your SQL or any other data access you have, this is really big.
Sure, I must reach out to Constantinos,
and one thing we actually
because
skipped,
I think he wanted this. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was going to say one thing we actually skipped earlier was, I think we skipped it, was that soon you'll be able to use Snowflake and MongoDB and Databricks as data sources for your models in SageMaker.
Ah, yes, that's pretty significant.
So that's not available yet, but coming soon. And so, that plus this Redshift and Neptune, obviously they're trying to make it easier to add many, many data sources to your models, since, as we know, more data equals better model usually.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I've got a quick question about this. So the Redshift ML, is it features inside of Redshift which use ML, or is it me bringing a model that I've trained in SageMaker to Redshift, or is it I've got a model running inside of SageMaker that connects to Redshift?
That's a good
Tell
question.
me now. Tell me.
They compare. It's just another guess. They compare with Athena ML and Aurora ML, and if you consider them, you can invoke SageMaker endpoint from SQL and from Athena. So basically, I suppose my guess is that you will be able to use the PartiQL, which is the implementation of extending the SQL to invoke a SageMaker endpoint. That's my guess.
Gotcha. Everyone agree with that?
Again, we've just come out with the keynote and we've heard the headlines. But yes,
yeah. This half an hour. We started this video half an hour ago. I expect the consoles to be up, and where's the demo project? We're going to be coming to one of you for a demo project at the end. Not really. Yeah. Okay. All right. But that sounds as though what it might be. That's very interesting. So Konstantinos, who I was talking to earlier on, I think this is actually what he was asking for. So we'll have to loop back with him and see whether he's sort of happy with.
I think that there is another aspect of it, which is more obvious when you're talking about Neptune, is that the data, which is in the graph format, can be pulled into the to SageMaker, and then you can train the model, but you can also understand the relationship between the nodes. So if you take this concept, which they explained, and say, hey, what we have in Redshift is tabular data, so maybe they can also have tabular data and analyze it and make it easy for you to map to a specific table and maybe train the model based on that. So maybe it's two ways, not just query the SageMaker endpoint, but also building a SageMaker endpoint based on a table in Redshift.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
Yeah, they didn't talk about that in detail, but we were watching the keynote with the Italian community, and we had a researcher who is working on graph deep learning models, and he told us that this could be huge because you could add adjacency metrics to coming from the graph to your machine learning model. So if it is a two-way communication, it could improve a lot the kind of the deep graph learning model domains. Which I don't know, I don't understand very much. So I'm just reporting what he told us.
We'll come back to you for a demo in another couple of weeks. No, I'm being serious. No, in another little while. Excellent. Hey, I've just scrolled up a little bit and I saw QuickSight Q, which I'm assuming was another demonstration of how QuickSight could start to replace the computer on Starship Enterprise, which I think is amazing. Anything new there? Did we learn about QuickSight Q? No. But then I scrolled up and I saw Amazon look out for metrics. which
Yeah.
is something.
Yeah, that's the big one.
That's the big one.
Yeah, it's a big announcement because it is anomaly detection on a time series.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is that it has connection from a number of services. So you can pull your data from a number of existing services. They showed Salesforce, TimeStream, I suppose, and a couple of AWS services, but also third-party services. And you can define a metric, and you can use the definition of the metric to monitor how it changes over time and when it expresses anomalies. And that's cool. And they say that it improves over time. So it probably implements some kind of continuous learning.
So just to add to that, so it's multiple dimensions. So you have multiple labs to, I think they mentioned a couple of dozens or maybe hundreds of metrics you can feed into the same model. And the way that it improves is by the feedback that you can provide. So every time you get a false alarm, you say, hey, I don't like it. Or if you can say, this is something I care about, then the model can become smarter and smarter in time. And those false alarms are usually the hardest problem. And another thing that they have is the attribution. So they can tell you what is happening, not just that there is something happening, but they can point to the metric, which is the one that to blame for the anomaly.
Yeah,
for sure. This is one that I actually do know a little bit about from before reInvent. So hey, at last I got something I know about. So my understanding is that there's so when I was looking at it, there weren't lots and lots and lots of dimensions, but there were 5, and I guess a nod to the fact that maybe they could be more in time, and maybe they've come out with more straight away. It ran in 2 different modes, so you can get a pre-existing set of data and just sort of pass it in and say, find me the anomaly there, and it will find the anomaly. Or you can stream data in and it will get better over time and learn and do as you were saying, Guy. It has then the user interface, so it's not just a case of it sort of spitting out an SNS topic and you having to dig through something and write an API call, but it has that user interface where you can say, yeah, that there is a false positive, as you're saying, so you can start to help it get iteratively better over time. I think this is, it seems to me that there is a theme emerging at reInvent this year, which is anomaly detection. I don't know if that's just me, but with Monitron and with Lookout for metrics, Lookout for vision, wasn't there another Lookout as well? Lookout for equipment?
Equipment, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Gillian, watch out for the piano.
DevOps Guru as well. You know, you've got anomaly detection in there.
Yeah, sure.
Anomaly detection is just a brilliant use of ML in general. I mean, you know, we've been building anomaly detection systems for decades, but this just makes it so much easier, because before you would essentially have to have an anomaly to figure out how to detect it, and then you could build from there and maybe detect similar anomalies. But you know, it was a lot of going back and forth, and now it's like magic automation. You know, this will vastly accelerate anomaly detection using ML and making it super easy to do it. So yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah,
it's also part of a very big initiative to do industrial or manufacturing. So the panorama that we mentioned before. So the ability to really go into those very noisy, very problematic environment like factories and add AI there with cameras and those tiny sensors and do it with no knowledge and not much effort. This is going to be huge, because those companies are looking for those solutions and they will try out. I don't know if it's going to be perfect, but it's certainly a very, very good starting point to get ML to those environments.
Yeah, I think that they targeted all the problem at different level of abstraction. Just let me unroll the announcement in the right order. That should be, okay, then we have lookout for metrics. You can do anomaly detection on your data. And if you don't want to integrate, we have lookout vision and lookout equipment that you can start using with your existing equipment, or to build a detection, a quality assurance tool. And then if you don't want to spend a lot of time and you have some kind of compatible business, you can use Monitron, and we provide also the devices built upon that. So you have Monitron, Lookout Vision equipment, and Lookout for Matrix. This is quite a huge, because they address the 3 different levels of the problem. And this is something quite new for AWS, because they used to provide different abstraction in different years. They used to give you the tools to do object classification, and then the tools to do custom labels, and then the tools to fine-tune your model, but not at the same time. Today, they are deploying the whole stack directly to the industrial world.
There was one more big announcement, Mike.
Yes,
The last
yes.
one.
Well, I'm scrolling up and I'm seeing Dr. Matt Wood. That's another drink for my liking. So there you go. I'm playing the drinking game with tea because it's early. Yes, go on. No, sorry, Gillian, carry on.
No, that's okay. So I think the last big one, if I haven't missed any, it was Amazon Health Lake, which is a specialized data lake for health data.
I don't know. I like the sound of a health lake. Like if like
So they called it.
that's like, so a big lake of, is it healthy lake or is it healthy lake would be better?
Think of it like a spring, you know, a nice warm spa.
Sure.
The fountain of youth.
And next year we are having a health lake formation.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
probably need it. Yeah.
Okay, so rather than what it could be in our fantasy world, who knows what it actually is? Looks like they've got a doctor or something talking about it, have they? I know they're from Philips.
Yeah. I can try to explain, because I didn't know about Health Lake, but I know about the problem, because we are working on that. You have a lot of different and structured data, because different hospitals in the world, even when you are targeting a single disease, think about diabetes, which is the example that they did. You have different hospitals and different clinical results and different records that you have to join together to have a single view of the patient, in order to put that data into a machine learning model. Then you want to diagnose if someone is getting diabetes or not, and you have his blood pressure values, his blood sugar values, his say BMI, body mass index values, and so on. Every one of them has been recording on a different data model. Then you have to put all of them together and try to detect whether or not he is going to have diabetes in the future. And it is very difficult, because they cannot have a single place to store the data. And there are a lot of companies out of there that are working in building clinical data storage to try to normalize this kind of data, which is really a mess. And with Health Lake, I think that they are applying the data lake concept to the same environment. They are saying, okay, throw all this data on S3, we run a bunch of Spark anything related whatsoever, and we try to build some kind of views from that model in order to allow you put Amazon Comprehend Medical or your SageMaker trained model upon that, and detect whether or not that person is going to have some kind of disease.
Yeah.
So just to add on that, so it's not only the metrics like the BMI or the blood sugar, the blood level, but the sugar level, that it's also unstructured data, like those doctor notes. You mentioned Comprehend for medical, and prescription. So I can write the name of the same medicine 15 different ways. So try to normalize it in a way so you can actually see what's happening in time with this patient and all the patients in the hospital.
Yeah, because you have a lot of medication that a person takes over time, even before he's diagnosed with a disease. Speaking about diabetes, you have metformin and medication like that that can be prescribed by a number of different doctors, and you have to you have to trace them, to trace therapies, and look what happens next. The same is for autism, the same is for oncological diseases, say for cancer and whatsoever, and it's very difficult to keep track of everything.
For sure. So we're talking about data lake being combined with maybe some pre-trained models and some smarts there. So not necessarily any groundbreakingly new technology, but just bringing it together for a vertical purpose, and very on message for this year, I guess. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and
they mentioned that they found a vaccine to corona thanks to some of those efforts. They weren't that specific, but they said that the company that did one of them was using that to make the process faster.
Yeah, have you seen that in the slide where they put all the partners, all the customers? You had all the companies which are working on the vaccine. You had Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer, and Roche. All the companies that are developing vaccine are put on that slide. Another dimension that they are bringing into Health Lake is the dimension related to sensors, because the person from Philips talked about the monitoring devices, because you have a lot of data coming also from personal health equipment and medical health equipment that can be added.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So Luca, just to make sure that you understand, what helped to find the vaccine? Is it serverless or was it machine learning? Just to make sure that we are.
I don't know, unfortunately. I guess both.
Yeah, the crux of the announcement is that they're using ML to essentially take all of these semi-structured and unstructured medical records and turn them into structured data that's all the same.
Yeah,
sure.
Think about medical imaging. Medical imaging is a huge field. We did a project with an hospital in Italy, which is related to ultrasound images for myocarditis, and we applied machine learning to detect myocarditis with ultrasound. It is an open project, so I can talk about that, and it's something that we did for the public health. But it's just one application. They had 2 sessions last week about medical imaging. The first one was from Bracco, which is an Italian pharmaceutical company, and the second one was from the University of Netherlands. Both of them have been at their event, so hopefully they will be listed in the video on demand, and they talked about these topics.
Okay. Now, well, like was that the sort of big finish? We were that AWS is curing the world. Is that the finish?
No, the big finish was Deep Racer.
Oh, right.
Where they did the sizzle reel of coming in 2021 and told us absolutely nothing new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing deep this year.
Yeah.
We had Deep Lens, Deep Racer, Deep Composer, and the deep nothing.
No, look, yes. So I think this year, I mean, I was looking for the toy as well. I think the toy is now we're all grown up now, and we didn't get a toy. we got Monitron, we got Panorama, we're grown up stuff. Yes. So fine. Okay. I take the hint.
No deep toy. We were really hoping for a deep drone, but sadly,
deep drone would be great.
Do you know what I wanted? I wanted AR. I wanted an AR device that we could use. I didn't know really how that was going to lead into machine learning particularly, but yeah, I just wanted to have some AR VR stuff maybe, but I don't know. But all right, so I'm thinking that we've got to the end of the most announcements. I've
but if
scrolled.
you are an AWS hero, then maybe you will get something for reInvent.
Oh, who knows? Oh man, we get given plenty of stuff, which is very kind of them. All right,
no, but we want to encourage more people to become heroes, right?
Oh, I see.
So,
I thought you wanted to
again,
encourage
we
being
are
given more
accepted, so
things.
maybe exactly.
No, absolutely. No, we need more heroes in Australia, I tell you. Well, certainly in Queensland, because I'm all on my own. Come on, everybody.
You got a region. What do you care?
Oh yeah, we have. Yeah, new region announcement overnight. That was exciting.
Yeah,
It's not where I am, but you know, it's in the country, which is good. All right, so for this keynote then, I guess top pick. Let's not all go for the same thing, but Gillian, what's your big takeaway from this keynote?
That's my big takeaway.
That it's finished.
There's lots of bits and pieces. Like obviously big focus on SageMaker, and then it just seemed like a whole mix of things. A lot of them very specialized, like Health Lake or in industry, to specific, industries, rather than just generally to everyone.
For sure. Jeremy?
I'd say my biggest takeaway is they're definitely moving up the stack. I don't think we had any even mention of lower tier type MXNet, anything like that. Like they might have said the word once, but
sure.
I mean, everything this time was about high level services that make ML accessible to non-ML people. That seemed to be the overarching theme is let's make ML accessible to people who wouldn't be using it otherwise.
So no mention of it, no mention of inferentia, sorry, or anything like that.
I don't recall.
Yeah. No, they mentioned that Alexa is running faster thanks to it. So they did talk about it, but very, very briefly.
Sure.
Yeah. Like real quick, like that's a thing that we did. But let's move on to stuff that we really want to talk about.
Sure.
Exactly.
Guy, what's your takeaway from this?
Sure. So again, I'm working with the rest of the universe. Again, I'm working with traditional companies, big enterprise, not high tech. And this is why this was a great reInvent for us, because all those industrial manufacturing services making it so easy to adapt. And I love data, and very hard to get this data out from those old controllers, 60 years machinery, and so on. So it's take this small sensor, just glue it to the device, and you have anomaly detection. It's so amazing. So again, I really hope that it will open up the mind for also all those companies to use the cloud, to use data, to use analytics, to use machine learning. This is, for me, it's the biggest announcement.
Awesome.
Very cool.
And Luca?
Yeah, I think that the biggest takeaway is that AWS is moving different from the competitors, because they are not focusing on giving you the best, newest research paper on whatsoever. They are shifting towards democratizing machine learning and putting in your hands a tool, which is SageMaker Studio, which could be from A to Z a complete tool for machine learning. And on the other side, they are focusing on business impact, which is what I like most from AWS, because I work with a company and we try to push and to raise the bar of the technology. And they are giving a lot of companies like mine around the world the tools that we need to increase, to evolve some fancy traditional sectors. Think about health, think about industrial sector, things like this. We have a lot of markets in which all the anomaly detection and the quality assurance is done manually. I can think about a customer working in the food environment, and they weight the number of discarded food each day, and starting from that, they try to figure out what is going wrong. because there is a lot of things to do. It is a huge market and a huge space for partners, and it is really great that AWS is focusing on that.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, okay. So yeah, the overall theme maybe from the whole of reInvent in terms of machine learning so far, and probably we're done now, right, for theme setting, is yeah, that application of machine learning in the real world, and deriving genuine and real business and social value from machine learning rather than just sort of like shiny bells and whistles. So yeah, and that's an exciting place to be. Look, thanks so much to everybody for well, I was going to say for getting up so early, but you're not. It's me. I'm the one that got up early. Thank you so much for
thanks, Mike, for getting up early.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking that hint, Julian. Thanks for joining me and helping me get across the news early from my time zone, and helping hopefully everybody to get a little bit more of an insight as to some of the announcements that we got from this keynote.
We saved you 2 hours of watching in this 45 minutes. So
why do you think I did this? Why do you think I did this? So yeah, thank you so much. And look, it's going to be great to hook back in with you over the coming days and weeks. And as we sort of unwrap this even more, see what happens for the rest of reInvent. Of course, reInvent's now been announced that it's going until January. So goodness knows what's going to happen now. But thank you once again. And yeah, look, I'll connect with you very soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.